We are starting with breaking news right now. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tram Mai.
And I'm Justin Pizzera. Abortion in Arizona front and center this morning as the Arizona Senate is voting right now at the Arizona State Capitol.
Yeah, let's give you a live look right now on the Senate floor. Right now, as it stands, there are 16 yays or yes votes to repeal this near total abortion ban versus 11 nays, 11 no votes. We are still waiting for 2 more senators to put in their votes, but as it stands right now, it does look as though that this near total abortion ban will be repealed.
Yeah, they only needed 2 Republicans to flip and vote with Democrats, and it looks like that is going to happen. Let's listen in.
Evil in this country. We cannot blame this on judges and lawyers anymore, because Arizonans, today we have the responsibility to choose between life or death on this floor. In November, the people of Arizona will have the right or the responsibility to choose between life or death. And God is watching, as has been said. And on Judgment Day, we will all stand before the Lord Jesus Christ. And we will confess that he is the Christ. The last comment in Genesis chapter 19. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities. With that, Mr. President, I vote no.
Senator Farnsworth votes no. Senator Hoffman, how do you vote? Senator Mesnard, how do you vote? Senator Mesnard.
Mr. President, I rise to explain my vote.
Proceed.
Mr. President, some of you have watched me down here as I have had the exciting experience to get married to the love of my life and to begin planning a family together. Some of you may remember that my firstborn was born on sine die. How many of you can say that? Wanted to share some of that experience with you all. My wife and I decided we wanted to expand from 2 to 3. We were excited, obviously, when we got the news that we were pregnant. Excited still to then go and see. And technology is an amazing thing, to be able to see our firstborn on a sonogram via an ultrasound, and then to hear her heart beating. That was quite an experience. I don't know that I can quite, some of you experienced this, so maybe you know, but I can't really quite put it into words. I don't know if you could all hear that, but that is the beating heart of my firstborn daughter when she was around the end of the first trimester. In that whole experience, I learned a few things. First, as joyous as the occasion was, pregnancy is tough. I didn't have to go through it. I just got to watch. So that was a blessing for me. But pregnancy is difficult. Morning sickness, you name it. I mean, it's a challenge. Your body changes. And that, having witnessed that firsthand, I mean, I can stand up and I can say pregnancy, as joyous as an occasion as it was for us, is difficult. I realize also that there are some out there who face unplanned pregnancies. And so their feelings on the matter may be different than mine, and yet the challenge will still be the same. They may be facing financial challenges as well. Candidly, I don't know that those of us in the pro-life community have done a great job standing up for women in that situation. I don't know that we have. I think we're improving. I think we can do better. I wanted to acknowledge that. And I want to support policies that help women, pregnant women, and I do think that's the right way to say it, by the way, pregnant women, in situations where they have challenges they're facing and ways that we can come alongside them. Another thing I learned when listening to that beating heart is, in case there was any doubt, that was a living human being. And I had the privilege of being able to see it there in front of me and hear it there in front of me. But that casts all doubt aside in case I was thinking this was just a clump of cells, which I'm pretty sure that's what we all are actually, is a bunch of cells. There was a beating heart there, and I realized there are serious moral implications to the idea that we will just stop it. That we're going to stop the beating heart. When there's a beating heart, I think that matters. It used to be that the other folks on the other side of the aisle, their mantra was, abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. It wasn't so long ago that that was the mantra. But as I listen to what I hear from the vast majority of them, they seem to be running away from that. In fact, it almost more aligns more closely with Republicans today than Democrats. And the thing they're running away from seemingly is the word rare. And I get why that word might make people uncomfortable. There are moral implications there. Why would we want something to be rare unless there's maybe some moral issue at stake, which again I became convinced was the case when I witnessed each of the pregnancies. We had 4, we lost 1, 3 kids today that are a blessing. I realized that talking about the moral implications of abortion makes some people uncomfortable or even angry. After all, if you can convince yourself that we're not talking about a living human being, or we can categorize them in some other way, devalue them in some other ways to remove the moral challenge this poses to those who want abortion on demand up until birth with no restrictions, it makes it a heck of a lot easier, doesn't it? When we can close our eyes to the little human being pictured on the sonogram, when we can plug our ears to the beating heart of an innocent little person, it does become easier. What really troubles me in the midst of all this, I hear the other side saying, well, this is just about a woman's choice, or maybe a person's choice now, but a woman's choice. And that comes across to me as disingenuous when then I see by their actions efforts to deliberately attack every other choice possible except for abortion. For instance, I have seen now this onslaught against pregnancy resource centers. Little mom and pop shops, most of them. I realize they're not the size of Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers. So maybe that makes them less appealing to some and easier targets. All they are doing is volunteering their time and their resources to help women in need. And it is true that they will encourage them to choose life. I've seen them attacked for that, for encouraging them to choose life. So it comes across as disingenuous to me that the other side really wants there to be a choice. to be honest, when I see situations like that. But what's even more troubling to me is the inability, or maybe the unwillingness, of those who do advocate radical abortion policies to talk about the other living being involved. While I will say that I don't know that my side has done a great job talking about the challenges that pregnant women face, especially if it's unplanned or they're facing financial challenges, I find it really disturbing that the other side bends over backwards to try to avoid any acknowledgement of a living being here. I've never once heard it from my friends on the other side of the aisle in this chamber. Not a single time. At least acknowledge it. You can say it has less value. I will disagree with you, but you can say that and sort of then rationalize why we should allow it all the way up until the moment of birth. But they can't even, I've heard people say, I'm not going to support this bill because it might be helping pregnant women, or it might be dealing with the fact that if you murder a pregnant woman, there are 2 lives there. They fight against all of that, and they will say, I don't want to do anything that advances the idea that the fetus is a person. That is unbelievably disturbing to me. At least confront the moral issue here rather than running away from it. And then, of course, when you do that, by the way, history is replete with examples where before you do morally dubious things to people, what is it you do? You label them, you redefine them, you remove their humanity and their value so that then it is more justifiable to do the thing. We can see it in this country where we defined people as property. We can see it overseas. You're not the right race, we're going to exterminate you, or the right religion. Lots of examples. So I get really troubled when we are trying to remove the humanity of the unborn in the womb, because that would seem to set us up to do some morally questionable things. And then I hear it glossed over as abortion is health care. It is the only health care I'm aware of that involves ending a human life, except for maybe physician-assisted suicide. And while I oppose that, at least that person had a choice, whereas those in the womb do not. Now, I can look at this law in the books one I've never voted for, and I don't know that I would have voted for it in this way. I think it needs improvement. I mean, it lacks definitions. People have suggested that ectopic pregnancies or unviable pregnancies are implicated. For me, it should not be. That is not the same situation. Or other exceptions, it lacks those things. I would support a repeal and replace if that were an option. It's not. The choice before me here is whether to repeal it totally, leaving almost nothing in its place. I realize it's a 15-week bill that those on the other side also voted against. But that means that 95% of abortions are still okay. We're saving 5% of the unborn. And while I think that is something, it leaves much to be desired. So I'm facing a binary choice here. But because I believe that when there's a second person in the equation, that person should be given greater consideration, because I believe that not only does life begin at conception, but that life is precious. And because I believe that if I vote yes, these will be fewer. These heart beatings will be fewer. I vote no.
Senator Mesnard votes no. Senator Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I explain my vote?
Proceed.
And I'm explaining my vote mostly to my constituents who deserve an explanation. Not that they would be surprised, because I have always campaigned as being pro-life, so those that have paid attention know that. I'm pro-life, and I'm not pro-life, as some might think, because I want to oppress women and take away their rights. Interestingly, I'm also not pro-life because I'm a Roman Catholic, although it's convenient to have your position in line with that of your church. I'm pro-life because at a very early age, in my teenage years, I saw pictures of developing fetuses. And it's quite obvious that they're little people. There's no way you can change that view if you look, especially as the months go by. So to me, they're human beings. And to me, abortion is killing them. So judge me on my belief that they are living human beings. But if you want to misjudge me, please misjudge me and call me somebody who wants to oppress women, because I would much rather be thought of as a male chauvinist than as a baby killer, because the latter is worse. With that, I vote no.
Senator Kavanaugh votes no. Senator Birch.
Mr. President, with my shortened microphone, I once again rise to explain my vote.
Proceed.
We heard a lot of disinformation in this room today. I can rephrase. First, I want to explain that the graphic descriptions of abortion given here today do not bear any resemblance to the vast majority of abortions that are performed in this country.
Members in the gallery.
Abortions as they were described in this room today
burst out. Senator Birch.
Do not reflect the vast.
Hold on, Senator Birch. I understand your passion. When members are speaking on the floor, there is no outbursts in the gallery, please. Thank you. Senator Birch.
Certainly nothing at all like the procedures that I had. We're not really talking about what we're voting on here today. This is about the Civil War era ban that criminalizes doctors and makes virtually all abortions illegal. The ban that the people of Arizona overwhelmingly don't want. We're here to repeal a bad law. I don't want us honoring laws about women written during a time when women were forbidden from voting because their voices were considered inferior to men. But since we want to talk about the ballot initiative, the lies being told about the language of that bill need to be addressed. The bill does not allow for abortion on demand through the 9th month of pregnancy. That is categorically false.
Point of order has been called. Senator Hoffman, point
Thank
of
you,
order.
Mr. President. I don't know what district she's from, 9, I think.
9
the
it
senator
is.
from District 9 is not speaking to the bill. The bill deals with the repeal of the abortion ban. She's actually getting into the weeds on the ballot abortion measure.
I would like to be held to the same standard as everyone else who has explained their vote here today.
If she's speaking to abortion, it is germane to the bill. Please stick to the topic of abortion, the repeal on abortion.
Thank you. Then let me move on. Legislation that would be appropriate. Legislation that I think the public would like to support would have a viability clause, and any citizens initiative that was reflective of what the citizens have been asking for from the research, polling, and community engagement would have language to that
Senator
effect.
Birch, point of order has been called. Senator Hoffman, what is your point of order?
Thank you. Same point of order as before, Mr. President. She's talking about prospective legislation that has not been introduced and is certainly not on the board to be voted on today.
Senator Birch.
Whether or not what I'm saying actually is why I'm voting the way I'm voting. This is the reason that I'm voting this way, and I have a right, I'm elected, to stand here and explain my vote, and this is why I'm voting the way that I'm voting. It is germane to the bill. We are talking about abortion. It's already been a point of order on this issue, and I'm continuing to talk about abortion, which has already been ruled germane to this bill.
So the chair rules that we have had members speaking about abortion on both sides. As long as she pertains to abortion, she is germane. Proceed.
We also have to stop allowing people to suggest that there are abortion providers in this state or even in this country who provide elective abortions on demand for full-term pregnancy. This is false, and facts are facts. The majority of the people in this state believe that abortion is a decision that belongs to patients and providers. I appreciate the passionate religious convictions of members who have risen to announce their faith. I respect it. My beliefs are different from yours. I'm not afraid of the abortions that I had. I do not fear for my soul. They were the right decisions for me, and I don't have to follow your religion in this country. And this is not a belief that is consensus even among religious individuals. A very large portion of people who have abortions identify as Christian or Catholic. The trend towards legislating religious beliefs in this state is dangerous, and it should make everybody nervous, regardless of their faith. As to the concerns of those who felt that we have not followed process or proceedings here today, we have what should be a very balanced body. We are 16 Republicans and 14 Democrats. We all introduce bills. We all care about representing our constituents and making sure that voices are being heard in this body. Of the bills that made it to the governor's desk, 3 came from Senate Democrats. That's not a representative democracy. That's irresponsible representation, and that's what the leadership has chosen. If we don't want to be a representative democracy, and if we only want to allow some voices in the room.
Point of order. Senator Birch.
So I'm speaking specifically to this bill being here the way that it is.
Talking about procedure.
I'll wrap it right up. The reason that we're here right now, this bill has been up many times, and if we wanted to debate it, bring it to the committee. You have had the opportunity to bring our bills to committee over and over and over again. And if you refuse to hear our bills when they are popular with the public and when it's what the people of Arizona want, then we are going to use the tools and resources available to us to make sure that our constituents are being heard. It is their right. We cannot ignore the majority of Arizonans and only listen to voices that lean heavy into party politics because everyone else is going to be silenced in the process here.
Point of order. Senator Birch,
vote
how do you
yes.
vote? Senator Birch votes yes. Senator Shamp.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to explain my vote.
Proceed.
The members in this room, my constituents in LD 29, and the citizens in Arizona that have gotten to know Senator Janae Shamp, perioperative nurse manager, elected in 2022, is 100% pro-life. I wasn't going to speak today, but I cannot continue to hear misinformation be said and to not clarify. And that is, there is a very large difference between an abortion and a DNC, which is a dilation and curettage. And I'm here to tell you, as a woman who would never be in the operating room to perform an abortion, I have, unfortunately, witnessed the sadness of a dilation and a curettage. And I have been the nurse to hold the hand of the patient to go through this procedure. But a dilation and curettage, for what we call in the medical world as products of conception, is not the same thing as a pre-born living child. I can't stand to hear that misinformation continued. It is not the same. I also would like to clarify that this law, when it was put into effect, was to protect women. Because back in the day, women were sex trafficked. And when they got pregnant, they couldn't work. They couldn't earn money. for the people that held their papers. So therefore, I do not want to hear any more misinformation about where this actually came from. And finally, if abortions at 6, 7, 8, 9 months of gestation are not happening, then I call on all of the members to vote to ban it in the state of Arizona. I will not attack anyone for their beliefs, but I will not stand for misinformation, especially when it is medically aimed to distort. And with that, I vote no.
Senator Shamp votes no. Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to explain my vote.
Proceed.
You know, I have been tremendously blessed with a big family. I have a loving wife who many of you have met here in the gallery, and I have 5 incredible children, 14 to 5. Now, not all of those children were planned, but when we had the opportunity, when God gave us that life inside of my wife's womb, we chose to protect life. We chose to defend life. That doesn't mean it was easy. There were financial hardships. We didn't have a house that was big enough. There are always considerations and always factors that go into those decisions. But our job as humans, our job as people, is to defend and protect the most vulnerable, to defend and protect those who can't speak for themselves. You know, we have seen virtue signaling at its finest so far in this chamber. We have seen a total abandonment of the process, as was mentioned by a couple of other of my colleagues on the right. You know, had we not abandoned the process, like the amendment that was brought earlier, we could have ensured that there would have been mandatory reporting to law enforcement in situations of rape and incest, a tragic and heartbreaking and horrific experience that I wish on no one. But we could have done that. But unfortunately, my colleagues across the aisle and 2 on my own side abandoned the process. We could have amended the bill to eliminate the disgusting practice of the D&E abortions or the D&C abortions, except for those cases of miscarriages where a fetal heartbeat is no longer felt, where a fetal heartbeat no longer exists. But we didn't. We didn't do that because we abandoned the process. And I am disgusted at the fact that the political propaganda in this room, including from all of you in the media, continues to call this the territorial law, when you know full well that that is not the case. It's not even the same statutory reference number as the prior territorial law. Because the Democrats, with a Democrat majority in the Arizona Senate and a Democrat governor on the 9th floor, probably wasn't the 9th floor but they recodified this after extensive, multi-years long public input. They recodified this law. And they gave it a new number, 13-3603. It is misinformation to say that this is the territorial law, because this is the post-Roe law. This is the law that 4 years after Roe was decided, even Democrats in this state recognize that life is invaluable to us as a society, that life is worthy of protection. But that's not the case anymore today. And in fact, it was insinuated by Senator Hernandez that the Democrats in 1977 apparently weren't smart enough to read the law, that they didn't know how to read the law. And I'll tell you, that's an insult. It's an insult to the Democrats and the Republicans that served in these legislative chambers all those years ago. It's an insult just like when they say that minorities can't access an identification to vote. It's misinformation and it's propaganda. And that is what this debate has devolved into, unfortunately, by my colleagues across the aisle. And to my colleagues on this side of the aisle, you know, the senator from District 2, and I'm paraphrasing here, but claimed that countless women and teens are victims of sexual assault. Had we voted to amend the measure right here, we would have required mandatory reporting. We would have protected those people from the disgusting perpetrators of those crimes. But we weren't able to do that. And you know, with the very, very long 21-minute vote explanation by that same senator from District 2, she has confused the pro-life community. Now, I won't assume her motives. Maybe that was unintentional. But she has confused the pro-life community. Make no mistake, to everybody watching this and hearing my voice right now, and everyone who will hear it, she voted for abortions. She voted for 95% of all abortions continuing to exist. And what I find truly incredible is that even the leftist, Bill Maher, sees the cognitive dissonance and hypocrisy in that stance and in that logic. Bill Maher recently said, and I quote, "I don't understand the 15-week thing. I can respect the absolutist position. I really can. I scold the left when they say, oh, you know what? They just hate women. Those are people who are pro-choice. They don't hate women. They just made that up. They think it's murder, and it kind of is. I'm just okay with that. I am. There are 8 billion people in the world. I'm sorry, we won't miss you." That's my position on that. Even Bill Maher knows that it's murder. And any leftist who is honest with themselves on this topic, like Bill Maher, knows it's murder. Plain and simple, that's what this is. You know, our founding fathers, in the Declaration of Independence, they wrote these words: "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." They are life. Life, I say again. And it wasn't as if the Declaration of Independence was the only time that they made that argument. In the 14th Amendment, in the Equal Protection Clause, and I'm reading just the excerpt that applies here, it says, "Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws." Now, we've already heard from my colleague in District 27 that our criminal code codifies these preborn children as persons. So what we are doing here today is in plain letter violation of the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the 14th Amendment. But apparently, nobody cares about those archaic laws anymore. That's what we've heard today, is that they're archaic. Well, you know what? I don't take the Constitution, I don't take that as being archaic. The Equal Protection Clause in the Bill of Rights, that sure as hell doesn't seem archaic to me. It seems like it was divinely inspired. It seems like it was designed for a day just like this. So what are we actually doing here today? For all the knuckleheads in the media, let's go ahead and put it on record, okay? What are we doing today? Now, according to the Guttmaker Institute, no friend of the pro-life community, okay? The Guttmaker Institute is a pro-abortion research center. At 15 weeks, which is when this bill, right now it has 16 votes. So when this bill passes, at 15 weeks, 95% of abortions. In Arizona, that equals 12,350 approximate lives snuffed out. 8% of those abortions will be performed on teenagers. That's about 1,000. 57% of those will be young women in their 20s, about 6,500. 31% will be women in their 30s at 3,600. Now, 50% of those abortions will be performed on Hispanic minorities, 8% on black minorities, 58%. Please let that sink in. These are not my numbers. These are the pro-abortion crowd's numbers. 58%, 7,200 lives from those communities will be snuffed out if this bill passes. Now, 44% of the abortions allowed by this bill, according to Gutmaker again, 44% of those abortions will be surgical abortions. Now, we talk about these, and again, the left propagandizes and conflates medical terminology with abortion terminology. But let's actually look at what one of these surgical abortions looks like. If you could see her baby, which is quite easy on an ultrasound, she would be as long as your hand plus a half from the top of her head to the bottom of her rump, not counting the legs. Your patient has been feeling her baby kick for the last month or more, but now she is asleep on an operating room table, and you are there to help her with her problem pregnancy. The first task is to remove the laminaria that had earlier been placed in the cervix to dilate it sufficiently to allow the procedure you are about to perform. With that accomplished, direct your attention to the surgical instruments arranged on a small table to your right. The first instrument you reach for is a 14 French suction catheter. It is clear plastic and about 9 inches long. It has a bore through the center, approximately 3/4 of an inch in diameter. Picture yourself introducing this catheter through the cervix and instructing the circulating nurse to turn on the suction machine, which is connected through the clear plastic tubing to the catheter. What you will see is a pale yellow fluid that looks a lot like urine coming through the catheter into a glass bottle on the suction machine. This is the amniotic fluid that surrounded the baby to protect her. Now, with suction
breaking news right now on 12 News at 1. Welcome, everyone. I'm Tram Mai along with Justin Pizzera. We have been showing you a live look right now from the Senate floor since 12:22. This has been going on since 10 o'clock this morning, and basically the House is voting to repeal the near total abortion ban as it stands right now. 16 senators have voted yes to repeal the abortion ban versus 13 have voted no.
They only needed 2 Republicans to switch over from Republican and vote along with the Democrats to repeal this ban. Last week, the House voted. Their 3 Republicans flipped. They voted along with the Democrats. And now 2 Republicans in the Senate have appeared to flip as well. And so that would move this abortion ban to the governor's desk for her to sign, Governor Katie Hobbs.
Right. Those 2 particular senators that they were waiting to vote yes on, Senator T.J. Shope of Coolidge, along with Senator Shauna Bullock of Phoenix, both of them have voted yes to repeal that near total abortion ban. They both describe themselves as pro-life. Right now, we are waiting for one more vote, but as you can see, it looks as though that this bill will be repealed.
Picture yourself reaching in with the
Let's listen in.
And grasping anything you can. The uterus is thin and soft, so be careful not to perforate or puncture the walls. Once you have grasped something inside, squeeze on the clamp to set the jaws and pull hard, really hard. You feel something let go, and out pops a fully formed leg, about 6 inches long. Reach in again and grasp whatever you can. Set the jaw and pull really hard once again, and out pops an arm about the same length. Reach in again and again with that clamp and tear out the spine, the intestines, the heart, and the lungs. The toughest part of a D&E abortion is extracting the baby's head. The head of a baby at that size.
Senator Mendez. Senator Mendez, what's your motion?
You can't motion. We're in the middle of a vote.
What's your point of order?
I appeal your ruling.
Okay, I haven't made a ruling yet. What's your point
Your
of
previous
order?
ruling.
Okay, what's your point of order right now, sir?
That you both know that he's wasting time.
Okay, that's
If it
you're
could
out
get to
of order.
just ask him to get to the point.
You're out of order, sir. You have to have a point of order. Proceed, Senator Hoffman.
Thank you. The head is now free floating inside the uterine cavity. You can be pretty sure you have hold of it if the SOFR clamp is spread about as far as your fingers will allow. You will know you have it right when you crush down on the clamp and see white gelatinous material coming through the cervix. This was the baby's brains. You can then extract the skull pieces. Many times a little face will come out and stare back at you. Congratulations. You have just successfully performed a second trimester suction D&E abortion. You have just affirmed her right to choose. That was testimony given to the United States Congress by Dr. Levitino, a former pro-choice abortionist who realized that what he was doing was not health care. It was murder. And it is heartbreaking. As Senator Kern said, the Democrat Party policies today have sadly become the policies of death and destruction. As Senator Mesnard said, safe, legal, and rare used to be the mantra of the Democrats. But as you can see on the board, it is no longer the case. In fact, we don't have to look much farther than just partway across the country in New York, when just a few years ago, approximately 2016, I think it was, when they erupted in raucous applause at allowing partial birth abortions. So the misinformation that they don't happen, Democrats in the New York Assembly sure cheered loudly when they authorized it. That is a procedure even worse than the procedure I just described. Even more gut-wrenching and heartbreaking, because that is a fully formed baby that when it comes out of the womb, they stab it in the bottom of the spinal cord. They stab it right at the base of the skull to try and sever brain function. That is a completely viable baby. Friends, these policies are literally, and I don't mean that in the New Dictionary form of figuratively, I mean they are literally destroying America. They are destroying American culture and American society and America's viability as a nation. You probably, or maybe you didn't, you maybe saw that recently the U.S. fertility rate fell to only 1.6 children per woman in 2023. That is the lowest it's been in American history. That is fewer children than in 1980. Now, to put that into perspective, in 1980, America had 100 million fewer people in it. And yet there were fewer children in 2023 than in 1980. We can go through any number of reasons for why this is. One, certainly of which, is the cultural Marxism that has permeated American governments, that has permeated the political class, the postmodernism, where we've completely abandoned objective truth and reality. We no longer believe as a society, I do, but as a society, we no longer believe that there is truth, that there is the truth. Society tries to tell us, well, it's your truth. That's not truth. That's opinion. The truth on this issue here today, on this issue up on the board, the truth, the only truth, is that this is allowing 12,350 murders to occur in Arizona every single year. The truth is that Katie Hobbs and Chris Mays have said they refuse to enforce the law that is on the books, that the Supreme Court has ruled is statutorily valid. Why? Because they don't like it. The truth is that we will have over 12,000 people die because of what's happening here. And that's not hyperbole. That's the numbers from the pro-abortion community. And I guess, like Bill Maher said, it's murder. They're just okay with that. So I vote no.
Senator Hoffman votes no. Senator Gowan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise
Proceed.
to explain my vote. Thank you, Mr. President. Members, it's been a pretty bad day in my mind. I'm very saddened. I've been pro-life ever since I remember. Today makes me feel like when 9/11 hit. I have that feeling. I don't know if many of the other side who is voting yes on this don't understand that feeling in this arena for this. That's the way I believe a lot of us are feeling for this issue here. Because when you bring up territorial law and you say territorial law like it's, it's just old or antiquated law, as one of my colleagues spoke on that. I guess the Constitution most likely is, because it was created before the territorial law. But we still believe in the Constitution. We still believe that murder should be punished, theft should be punished. We still follow laws even from England, from English law. Are those not antiquated? First Amendment. I am so thankful I have the right to speak my mind as I wish and choose as an American citizen. I'm so grateful that within that we can assemble. I'm so grateful that I have the freedom to believe in my God and not be punished. My Christian faith, I am a Christian, proudly. Thank you, Lord Jesus. My faith directs me in the manner that I lead my life. And in this situation here, even as we talk about our faith and where it leads us, where it takes us, I'll speak to you scientifically. When the sperm hits the egg, that is a life. And we know this scientifically. From the preborn in the womb to birth to you and me right now. Is that not life? These babies are innocent. And it saddens me we're here today voting to take away the ability for them to live. I wear these proudly. I have feet on my lapel. That's a 10-week-old baby's feet in the womb. And we're preparing to go to 15, allowing 15 and before. This is 10 weeks. This baby could be aborted after this. That's why I'm sad today. You know, I look at this and I think about my two sons. When my wife was pregnant, was in the womb, 5th month. Doctors were saying, well, we don't know if it's going to make it. You may want to think about aborting. And that didn't even come to our mind as they said it. We said no. Same thing with my second child. My wife's womb was very thin and said she might not be able to carry him to term. You might think about that. And of course, we said no. Now, my two sons, 28-year-old David Jr., mining engineering degree, just took his LSAT. He'll be going into law. Wasn't viable at 5 months, yet here we are. My other son graduated high school early. Now he's in college. He's going into his senior year. That's life. That's my family's life. I feel for many others who are about to lose their lives. And I will pray that this nation will turn, that our Lord will turn our nation to the right again. It's a tough, sad situation we're in. With that, Mr. President, I vote no.
Senator Gowan votes no. Senator Carroll.
Mr. President, I rise to explain my vote, please.
Proceed.
You know, there's a lot of points made by my colleagues here with respect to this bill that's before us. And I will fall back to what Senator Shamp had brought up, and she keyed in on a really important aspect of things. Our responsibility in this body is to really understand the intent of the law and where it came from. Statements have been made that the territorial times were archaic. I would contend if that's their position, then they consider family archaic. And it kind of fits the mantra of what's going on today with the sex trafficking, the human trafficking, the child abuse, and the other things that are taking place today. And given the size of the population of our country, the size of the populations of the world, our open borders, all of these are impacting a situation that's just so ungodly. Also add to the fact that the medical industry seems to have disavowed their Hippocratic oath to save and protect lives. And to hear them speak as they do, as if this is just a business, a financial gain of some kind. And it's most unfortunate that we're at a place like this. So all I will say is, at this point, I will continue to fight for children's lives, born, unborn. I will continue to fight against the sex trafficking and the human trafficking that's taken place. And looking at the votes on this board, unfortunately, we're attacking the family as well. So I will proudly vote no and stand my ground for God, country, and children.
Senator Carroll votes no. Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to explain my vote.
Proceed.
Listening to my colleagues, I really don't have a lot to add to your eloquent words, your hearts that you have shared. For those of you supporting life today. And I'm just sitting here reminded how far we've come from teaching how precious the sanctity of human life is. And we've got to get back to that. We have to teach it to our children, our grandchildren, and beyond. As has been mentioned, my vote reflects being a voice for the voiceless. And I agree with those who have said, Senator the senator from District 19. I'm grieving. I'm so sad today with him. And I vote no.
The whip votes no. Senator Bennett.
Mr. President, I'd like to explain my vote.
Proceed.
The choice that we have today, I think, was correctly described by Senator Mesnard. Stay with the 1864, 1977, whatever, or the 15-week. I'm voting no because I think 15 weeks is way too long. I think the law in the books presently leaves out some changes that would improve it, such as an exception for rape and incest with reporting, severe mental or severe fetal defects that would not allow the child to survive at birth. Our daughter is a labor and delivery nurse and has practiced for 18 years, 13 in Arizona, 5 in Utah. She usually works 3 or 4 days a week. And at the end of every shift, she calls either her mother or me or both to tell us how her day went. And that means that I've heard hundreds of stories, many of them joyous, and many of them so heart-wrenching, it's beyond my comprehension how she does what she does. And there are situations where parents have chosen to terminate a pregnancy for reasons that are not contained in our present law. And it's difficult to craft any law that takes account for every exception, but I can't go from where we're at right now to 15 weeks. Because long before that, and I give a lot of emphasis on when the heart starts beating and when the brain of that child is emitting waves. And that's long before 15 weeks. So that's a critical point to me. We can debate as pro-lifers or all of us when life begins. God knows that, but to me it's long before 15 weeks. But I want to say that I respect the persons behind every one of the names on this board, whether you're green or red. I'm sure you're voting your conscience, and I will stand for that.
You have just been listening currently to the Senate floor right now. Ken Bennett speaking right now on the Senate floor. They have been convening since 10 o'clock, talking about the repeal of the near total abortion ban. We've got live team coverage on this. Bram Resnick has been inside on the Senate floor, as well as Colleen Sikora, who's been outside the state capitol. But we want to start with you, Bram. You were inside. Tell us what happened and where do we go from here?
Well, let's start with the bottom line. The Senate passed the repeal by 16 to 14. 2 Republicans voted with Democrats to pass the bill. The gavel hasn't fallen yet. Every member, largely Republican members, are being allowed to have their say, and they're speaking for 5, 10, in one case almost 30 minutes, explaining their votes. It's a tradition, but usually the explanations are much shorter. But Senate President has given them plenty of leeway to express their feelings, and those feelings are heartfelt heartfelt, emotional, angry, a lot of anger from Republicans directed at the two Republican members who voted with the Democrats. What comes next? Well, the bill will be heading to Governor Katie Hobbs later today. She has said she will not sign it today, more likely tomorrow. I would expect a larger ceremony tomorrow, Thursday or Friday. The big unanswered question is, when will this ban, the repeal of the ban, take effect? That would happen 90 days after the end of the legislative session. We don't know when that will be. The best guess, it'll be June 30th. Typically, it ends around then when the fiscal year ends, the budget is done. Factor the time in, that would bring you to October 1st. The ban would be repealed. In the meantime, Chris Mays, the Attorney General, is trying to get as much time as she can to delay the start of the ban, because the ban is still law. It is supposed to take effect. Chris Mays is trying to delay it as long as she can, that effective date. And right now, that could be close to when the repeal starts. So we're watching the calendar, unclear. It is likely the ban will be in effect for several days or even several weeks before the repeal takes effect. So again, the repeal passes by a 16-14 vote here in the state Senate. It passed the House, but by a 3-vote margin. Again, with Republicans helping out Democrats to cross the finish line. And that's where we stand. A very bitter, emotional, heartfelt day here at the Capitol. Not a debate anybody is going to soon forget. Colleen?
Yeah, and then we've seen some of that debate even play out here, you know, in between the two chambers here at the Capitol lawn. People on both sides of this issue, very passionate pro-life folks, as well as passionate people who are for abortion as well, and concerned over even the repeal going into effect and still the 15-week abortion ban being on Arizona's books. We have seen, looks like people are just starting to file out here as well from the Senate chamber. The gallery was very full.
Yeah, there are about 120 people in the gallery today, full up at times, heckling the speakers, heckling the Republicans who voted with the Democrats for the repeal. At one point, a woman screaming, you know, enough, just vote already. This is disgusting. It was, again, very emotional. We don't doubt the sincerity of anybody in that room. Yeah. It's a really tough day, a day many thought would never come. Yes?
Bram, I wanted to ask, you were talking about some of the anger that these Republican lawmakers have towards the two that flipped. Last week, we saw 3 Republicans flip and vote with Democrats, and one of the members of the House was stripped from the Appropriations Committee. Are you hearing anything, any backlash that these two could face? Is there any disciplinary things that they could face for voting with the Democrats?
That is possible. They were, each of them, dressed down by their colleagues, several of their colleagues, in the harshest terms. One Republican who voted against the repeal compared the vote of Republican voted for it to Nazi Germany. It got pretty ugly in there. So yes, there is the possibility of discipline. I'll tell you this, the discipline arises not so much for the vote they cast, but for having voted against their caucus and voted against the leader of the body, Republican Senate President Warden Peterson. You heard the phrase, you rolled the Senate today, you rolled the president. That's what happens when Republicans turn against their leader, or Democrats if the situation were reversed, and that is viewed as a very grievous sin. Punishment is possible. I had to leave before the gavel came down on the 16-14 vote, but we'll keep an eye on that.
Bram, you were talking specifically Shauna Bolick. She was up in a pretty tight spot because she's in a swing district, so if she didn't vote to repeal this ban, she could have lost her seat.
Well, she is running for re-election, and she could still lose her seat. Shauna Bolick is an interesting example. About 2 months ago, she stood on the Senate floor with a bunch of other fellow senators and recorded a video urging Arizonans to vote against the ballot initiative we expect to see in November, the Arizona Abortion Access Act. They urged folks to vote against it, and she invoked God's will. It is God's will when it comes to the birth of a child. And here she is today voting to repeal a ban which for many pro-life advocates is their ultimate goal, banning abortion. It's hard to reconcile when you have two pro-life legislators. And the Republicans in the House are pro-life legislators as well, voting in a pro-choice manner. So Shana Bullock will still have a tough election. It's a swing district. She spent about 30 minutes today explaining her vote, and I'll concede it was kind of tough to follow exactly why she voted the way she did.
All right, Bram and Colleen, we thank you both for your live team coverage outside the state capitol. Of course, we're going to hear much more from you coming up on our later shows on 12 News at 4, 5, 6, and 10. We appreciate it. Again, we just want to recap for you that the state Senate, they just voted to repeal the ban, the near total abortion ban. 16 yays versus 14 noes. We're still waiting for the gavel to come down to make that official. But as it stands right now, it looks like as though it has passed along with the House, which passed it last week.
Yeah, and these lawmakers have really been under pressure. They had a campaign targeting these lawmakers that were just kind of on the fence. They could flip over to the Democratic side and vote. So their text messages, emails, basically it was a national campaign pressuring these local lawmakers here to vote to keep the ban.
Yeah, not just on a local level, but of course, the Biden-Harris campaign, they have been very, very active, pouring billions of dollars to really target Arizona specifically because we are a battleground state. Again, where it goes from here, it will go to Hobbs's desk and she will have to sign it. We'll have much more coming up at 4.